Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Srila Prabhupada. Jai Nitalila Paravishta Om Vishnu Pad Paramhamsa Parivajikacharya Stottarishata Shishimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Nitalila Paravishta Om Vishnu Pad Paramhamsa Parivajikacharya Stottarishata Shishimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada Maharaj Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Brinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Garadhara Shiva Sari Gaur Bhakta Brinda Ki Jai. Shri Radha Gopinath Radhakund Shamakund Giri Govardhana Ki Jai. Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Navadvip Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Yamuna Mai Ki Jai. Ganga Mai Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Tulasi Maharani Ki Jai. Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Nitai Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bo. All glories to the Samudavaris Hare Krishna. All glories to the Samudavaris Hare Krishna. All glories to the Samudavaris Hare Krishna. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. Jagat Guru Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai. Hare Krishna. Welcome to this morning's Srimad Bhagavatam class. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay. So, Canto 4, Chapter 23, Text 26. Shaisha Nunam Brajati Urdhavam Anu Vainyam Patim Sati Pasyatasmam Atirachir Pasyatasmam Atirachir Durvi Bhaiv Yena Karmana Shaisha Nunam Brajati Urdhavam Anu Vainyam Patim Sati Pasyatasman Atityarchir Durvibhaivyena Karmana Shaisha Nunam Brajati Urdhavam Anu Vainyam Patim Sati Pasyatasman Atityarchir Durvibhaivyena Karmana. Prabhuji's. Sagunam Brajati Urdhvam Anuvenyam Patim Sati Pasyatasman Achityachir Durvibhaivyena Karmana. Sa, she, esa, this, nunam, certainly, brajati, going, urdhvam, upward, anu, following, vainyam, the son of Vena, patim, husband, sati, chaste, pasyata, just see, asman, us, atitya, overpassing, archihi, of the name Arci, durvi bhavyena, by an inconceivable, karmana, activities. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Maharaj Ki Jai. The wives of the demigods continued, just see how this chaste lady Arci, by dint of her inconceivable pious activities, is still following her husband upward, as far as we can see. Purport. Both Maharaj Pṛthu's airplane and the airplane carrying Queen Arci were passing out of the vision of the ladies of the higher planetary systems. These ladies were simply astonished to see how Pṛthu Maharaj and his wife achieved such an exalted position. Although they were the wives of the denizens of the higher planetary system and Pṛthu Maharaj was an inhabitant of an inferior planet system, the Earth, the king, along with his wife, passed beyond the realms of the demigods and went upward to Vaikuntha Loka. The word udvam, upward, is significant here, for the ladies speaking were from the higher planetary systems, which include the moon, sun, and Venus, up to Brahmaloka, or the highest planet. Beyond Brahmaloka is the spiritual sky, and in that spiritual sky there are innumerable Vaikuntha Lokas. Thus the word udvam indicates that the Vaikuntha planets are above or are beyond or above these material planets, and it was to these Vaikuntha planets that Pṛthu Maharaj and his wife were going. This also indicates that when Pṛthu Maharaj and his wife Arci abandoned their material bodies in the material fire, they immediately developed their spiritual bodies and entered into the spiritual airplanes, which could penetrate the material elements and reach the spiritual sky. Since they were carried by two separate airplanes, it may be concluded that even after being burned in the funeral pyre, they remained separate, individual persons. In other words, they never lost their identity or became void, as imagined by the impersonalists. The ladies in the higher planetary systems were capable of seeing both downward and upward. When they looked down, they could see the body of Pṛthu Maharaj was being burned and that his wife Arci was entering into that fire. And when they looked upward, they could see how they were being carried in two airplanes to Vaikuntha Lokas. All of this is possible simply by durvi bhavena karmana, inconceivable activity. Pṛthu Maharaj was a pure devotee, and his wife, Queen Arci, simply followed her husband. Thus they can both be considered pure devotees, and thus they are capable of performing inconceivable activities. Such activities are not possible for ordinary men. Indeed, ordinary men cannot even take to devotional service of the Lord, nor can ordinary men maintain such vows of chastity and follow their husband. Women maintain such vows of chastity and follow their husband in all respects. A woman does not need to attain high qualifications, but if she simply follows in the footsteps of her husband, who must be a devotee, then both husband and wife can attain liberation and are promoted to the Vaikuntha Lokas. This is evinced by the inconceivable activities of Maharaj Pṛthu and his wife. Om Ajnanatirmirandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Parakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Puranamami Hari Priye Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Padayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gaura Tvishe Namaha Nityananda Namastubhyam Premananda Pradayane Kalo Karmasa Nasaya Janava Pate Namaha Vanchakalpa Turubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhayevacha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Maha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna. Please accept my humble obeisances. It's usually the etiquette that someone who's more advanced in the room should take to the Vyasa-san, and I'm surrounded by people who are more advanced than me, so this is simply the mercy of Shri Radha Gopinath Mandir and the Vaishnavas within this Sangha. They are oceans of mercy. In fact, there's many Sanghas across the ISKCON world that you can't even do seva without Diksha initiation. And so the fact that I've been given so much mercy and capacity to serve at such a neophyte level is very, very fortunate. And it is very much in line with the mood of Srila Prabhupada to be given every opportunity to advance. And I'm truly very grateful, so thank you. So, we have a lot to flesh out in this purport. So, Pṛthu Maharaj and Arci are concluding their pastimes on earth, and now they, due to their incredible pious activities and primarily devotion, they are now transcending the layers of the material world and piercing through into the Vaikuntha planets. Of the preliminary or primary means of advancement in human society, you have economic development, sense gratification, liberation, and what was one I'm missing? Sense gratification, liberation, dharma, religion, sense gratification, economic development, and liberation. When generally karmis, they aspire for liberation, it's not for Vaikuntha, and so they are trying to gain a more comfortable material condition in the heavenly planets, where you're not burdened so much as compared to Earth and the planetary systems below. But actually, wherever you are in the material sphere, there is the nuisance of birth, death, old age, and disease. So it can't be avoided. It's simply, His Grace Devamrita Swami Maharaj has described it like, in the material world, you're, particularly in Earth planets, like you're drowning. He describes this ancient medieval tactic that they used to do, where they would put someone on a plank and dip them into the river and get them to the point of just drowning, not being able to breathe, and then they'd bring them up for air. And when you come up for air, such relief, no? Such relief. But that relief is not permanent, and it's not actually fully satisfying. It's just a relief from suffering. And so very quickly, when you've used up all your pious credits, you'll have to come back down into the material plane and begin another saga of accruing pious credits, and then you can go elsewhere if you desire. But by dint of such incredible devotional service executed by Pṛthu Maharaj, and by the chastity and submissiveness of his wife Arci, they were able to pierce beyond this material sphere and come to the plane of, as Krishna has described, upon where you never return. Once you attain Vaikuntha, you never come back, and you spend eternity there in bliss. But the materialists might not understand this, because for them, devotional service is not blissful. It's jarring. It's burdensome. So even if a materialist by some inconceivability entered into the Vaikuntha planets, they wouldn't be able to understand what's going on. To create an extreme, we can go and look at how Mahadev was very anxious to enter the Ras Leela and become one of the gopis. And so he did what he could to attain a form just like the gopis, but his mood was completely off and he was spotted out straight away. So similarly, if you don't have the mood of Vaikuntha, then it's not accessible to you, even if you were there for some reason or other. So, what is the mood of Vaikuntha? Prabhupada has said in his purports before that in Vaikuntha there is no envy, and to enter Vaikuntha you must have no envy, because everybody is blissfully engaged in devotional service, and when they see someone who's in a more exalted position, who's a more intimate servant of the Lord, they are so happy for their position, and there's an anxiousness to just serve them and help facilitate their duty to serving the divine couple. There's never an anxiousness to overtake anybody. It's always das anudas. Everybody thinks they're a servant of the servant in Vaikuntha. Everybody knows they are. And that is expressed, of course, as well with humility. So humility is not just an attribute to cultivate on the journey during sadhana. It is actually, as described by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, it's a symptom of bhakti. So it's innately, bhakti itself is innately humble. And so we shouldn't just think, now I am cultivating humility, and then when I'm a big shot preacher, big shot kirtanir, then there's no need for humility. Humility is always essential, and as soon as you've let go of trying to cultivate humility, or trying to practice meekly, then you're quite far away from the goal, in fact. This is why in the Shikshastakam we have Trinadapi Sunitina Taro Api Sahishnuna Amanina Maradana Kirtanya Sarahari. That when we look at the Shikshastakam, it's going through all the different phases of a bhakta as they evolve, starting with Shraddha, Param Vijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtan. That's faith. All glories to the Sankirtan movement of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So that's the faith. It begins with faith. And then we come to divine association of sadhus that plants the bhakti lata bij, the seed of bhakti within the heart. And when that seed is planted, then they can adequately go through bhajana kriya, and in the process of bhajana kriya, under the guidance of a spiritual master, anantanimvriti. So I'm very unfortunate still because I have not taken shelter. So my bhakti is anishta bhakti. It's insecure because I have not received the full grace of a spiritual master yet. So we should be very much anxious for this, because there's no other way. Shri Guru Charana Padma. There is no other way other than the shelter of the lotus feet of the spiritual master. And if we want fixed devotional service, we have to take shelter. And, it seems quite bogus me standing up and preaching all these things, but at least on one side, I can say these things because I'm experiencing the adverse effect. I maybe not have experience of what it's like to have fixed bhajan under the shelter of a spiritual master, but I very much know what it's like, and I've very much accepted the current predicament I'm in, it being outside of the shelter of a spiritual master. And so our only hope is sadhu sangha. And then through sadhu sangha, then we can have, after Anatta-nimvriti, the clearing of false values. So Anatta-nimvriti is many things, and it can go quite deep. It's not niche. It's not just, I eat too much chocolate on the weekends, or too much Netflix and this and that. It's also false values. It's also pride. It's also envy. It's also greed. It's not having an accurate understanding of what position are you. Are you Kanishta Adhikari? Are you Madhyama Adhikari? Are you Uttama Adhikari? It's so many things. It's also perceiving God in an incorrect lens due to an inaccurate understanding of Siddhanta. For example, like some faiths, they have a very much a mentality of God being so big and so far above them that all they can do is simply fear God. And just to preface, just to tangent, we do have a fear of God, but it's different because it's grounded in love. We love our Sangha, we love Radha Gopinath, we love Gauranitai, and we were so afraid of that leaving our life. We don't want to do anything to jeopardize that. That much you love something, that much you're afraid of losing it. But there's a different approach in some faiths that they just see God as such an unattainable, far away figure that is punishing us for what we do wrong, and that creates so much distance from God because you don't see him within your heart or in the hearts of other beings. Vidya Vinaya Sampane Brahmane Gavihastini Sunicheva Sapaketa Panditaha Samardarshanaha. When you attain that divine knowledge, the Jnani, the one who has attained that divine knowledge sees within the heart of all living beings that divine potency. And if you lack the full absolute tattva, full siddhanta, then you'll very much fear God, and your worship will be in a place of asking for things instead of just sincere devotional service. It's more like, please, give me this, give me that, and I will do exactly as you say. But we aspire to come close to God, and that's why the Goswamis have notoriously been known to, when they chanted, they always held their bead bag on their chest to remind themselves constantly of the Lord within the heart. So yeah, I've just tangented a whole lot, but basically, by dint of their devotional service, they were able to enter into Vaikuntha. And this is no easy feat. What does Prabhupada say in this respect? Such activities are not possible for ordinary men. Indeed, ordinary men cannot even take to devotional service of the Lord, nor can ordinary women maintain such vows of chastity. So why can't ordinary men come to the point of pure devotional service? Well, ultimately, it all stems from desire. Prabhupada we have a slightly different understanding of desire as compared to, say, the Buddhist sect. The Buddhist sect thinks liberation is the cessation of all desire. And Prabhupada very incredibly says, actually no, the soul innately has desire. You cannot strip desire away from the soul. But you have to purify the desire. So the purest desire, which is actually within the heart of everybody, is to engage in loving service with the Lord. But somehow or other, since time immemorial, we decided to experience a separateness, and we wanted to experience what it was like to be the center of attention for some reason or another, which is quite disheartening. I can't believe I made that decision. However, yes, so we made that desire, and then what happens with that single desire? Then we turn our back to God, and we start experiencing a material life, and then our desires, they filter through the false ego, the mind, the intelligence, the mind, and the body. And so when the desires are filtered through those faculties, then they become perverted. So everything in the material world, there is also in the spiritual world, and vice versa. But they're in a perverted, limited sense in the material world. So love, now filtered through the material senses, becomes lust. And then so strongly desiring love for God, now so strongly lusting for material things, unfortunately. And so they go here and there. There's a beautiful bhajan, Duraba Mana Janma. Yeah, beautiful bhajan. And it's described, this material world is almost like a circus with lights and all illuminating things, and I'm walking through the market aimlessly, being dragged here and there by my senses. No amount of lust can satisfy a lusty man. He'll always be unfulfilled. And so, as Krishna says in the Gita, any one of the senses can drag you off in either direction. So he's going here and there, the whims of the stomach, the whims of the genitals, the whims of the mind. Maybe he wants intellectual gratification as well. And so they're going here and there, but they're uncontrolled, like the senses of the horses, no? And the horses are going here and there, and you can't properly rein them in by dint of actually having an uncontrolled mind as well. And so the ordinary man cannot attain this devotional service because he's so heavily identified with the body and the whims of the body that has no taste for even considering a selfless life. He only knows some kind of happiness from selfish exploits. And the selfish exploits expand to family also. Like, for example, Hiranyakashipu. He loved Prahlad Maharaj originally, but he only loved him because he came from him. He didn't love Prahlad because he was a devotee or just purely. He loved him because it was a byproduct of him. He saw Prahlad as almost like non-different from him in that sense. That's why he had love for Prahlad Maharaj. But then as soon as, and this is the nature of a materialist, as soon as Prahlad Maharaj defied his father's laws, then very quickly his father didn't want to have anything to do with him and tried to slay him numerous times. So there's no taste in selflessness. No taste in selflessness in the material world. It's all how much can I secure a comfortable material living situation for myself and maybe my extended family. So this is like the disease jaundice. I was talking to one sadhu actually, and he was talking about actually when he experienced jaundice for the first time, and he was in Pakistan. And he went to the doctor, and the doctor said, just drink 7-Up and flush the liver out. So he started drinking this 7-Up, and he was, what is this, like donkey urine? He thought, he's like, this Pakistan 7-Up is terrible. then he realized, it's not the Pakistani 7-Up, it's this jaundice. And when he sufficiently flushed the liver out, then he could actually have taste of sweet again. And so, similarly in our devotional journey, because we've spent trillions and trillions of lifetimes just going with the whims of the senses constantly, even in this lifetime alone, I speak for myself, I have quite a muddy past of much conditioning, and it still scars me to this day, because memory is, it's a good thing if utilized in devotional service, but it can also be very dangerous, no? Because it can, something we did, years ago can come back into the mind, and then it can disturb the senses in that way. So we have to be very careful. But that can all be cured over time. Just as if you have a glass of let's say it's got blue dye in it, water with blue dye in it, and you start pouring pure water into that glass, then eventually the water will clear and become clean. And so similarly, if we have the right association, the right environment, the right diet, we have the austerity of only accepting prasad, and we, in spite of the difficulty, have a vow of chanting every single day. Prabhupada has prescribed 16 rounds, and we should make that our life and soul, because Why Hare Nama Hare Nama Hare Nama Eva Kevalam Kalau Nasteva 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 Gatiranyata. There's no other way other than the chanting of the holy name. And actually Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada Maharaj, he also said, we have all these limbs of bhakti, but the two primary important ones are Shravanam Kirtanam, hearing and chanting. And to the degree that any of the other limbs of bhakti get in the way of chanting and hearing, then we should discard them. He's not saying discard them, but he's saying to the degree that they impact your hearing and chanting, you should let go of them, or minimize them so that your chanting and hearing can take precedence. It's so important. When I first started seriously doing bhakti, the first thing I noticed was my ears could not tolerate kami music anymore. I used to listen to the rap and the indie and the whatever, and I used to love it, and I used to think, oh, this is so great, I've got such high taste in music, blah, blah, blah. And then I started listening to Sripada Indradas, and now I physically cannot stand hearing kami music. It's actually painful. And it's so interesting because at one point, that used to be my life and soul. I used to think this is the best thing ever. Wow, so incredible, such artistry. But now, and I'm being just sincere, like I can't listen to anything other than kirtan. And I have many other faults and all these things, and I'm not saying it's a high thing that I have, but I'm just saying that like eventually it happens that very naturally we just only want to have this constant flow of nectar in our ears. Whether it's recordings, whether it's in person, we have to constantly flood our consciousness with that. And that'll keep us fixed in our goals and in the gravity of life. Because someone who's religious or spiritual, they're innately going to be quite a deep thinker. That's fair to say, because they're not just thinking about the temporary aspects of life. As a statistic, I'm not saying all religious people are like this, but in general, you'll find that religious and spiritual people are quite deep thinkers, and they're not just thinking of the temporary whims of life, but actually thinking a bit more long-term. They're thinking like more Mahatma, more broad-minded, broad-conscious. And so, yeah, I don't know how I got to that point, but we must, always understand, the gravity of life, We're in a very precarious situation, in the Shikshastakam. Ai Nanda Tanuja Kinkaram Paditam Mam Vishame Bhavamuto. Oh my Lord, oh son of Maharaj Nanda, which is a very intimate name. It's beautiful that Chaitanya used Ai Nanda Tanuja, because that's like directly invoking Krishna. It's not just Vishnu, it's the son of Nanda. And so he's saying, I am your eternal servitor, behind all these layers, but somehow or other I found myself in this ocean of this material existence. Now this is a very treacherous ocean. And so we must have a very sturdy ship. And we must have an expert navigator, which is the spiritual master. And the ship is Krishna consciousness, at least for me. Is the ship described as anything else? The ship is like ISKCON, no? Oh, the boat is the body, yeah, thank you. Yeah. So the boat is the body, and well, that's a good point. Then we have to make sure the body is healthy. Actually, you were saying a couple of weeks back, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he actually says the priority is your bodily health, then comes sadhana, then comes seva. Because if the boat has holes in it, or you're not putting enough lacquer to stop it from water entering, you're just not tending to it properly, then it's going to get in the way so much, and how can you do your bhajan? And then if your bhajan is impacted because of your physical health, how are you going to do seva? So, we have to make sure that the boat is strong and sturdy, but it's a pendulum, like, I'm forgetting Prabhuji's name now, but he described physical health for a Vaishnava is like a pendulum. Like, we don't want to be entirely unhealthy, nor do we want to be super health conscious either. Like going to the gym, like excessive amounts. I actually learnt my lesson recently. Because like I've always gone to the gym to just help keep my mind controlled and keep my energy in check and just keep a healthy body. But I think I'd carried on a kind of obsession since high school to just go really hard at the gym. And Krishna gave me a back injury. Well, I gave myself a back injury, but I had a good lesson of like, you need to just not go so hard on the other side of the pendulum. Like, why are you going so much? It's ridiculous. So now, after a lot of like therapy and all these things, now I'm just going like, I just get in and out. Like I treat the gym like a bathroom. Like you're not spending time just hanging out in the bathroom. You get in, get out. Keep your like goggles in, don't look at anything. Just use the facilities that you need and get out. You don't even need the gym, to be honest. Just go run around the park. And a lot of sadhus do this in Vrindavan. Just skipping rope. I actually watched a video recently. It said that I think it was like 10 to 15 minutes of skipping with a skipping rope is equivalent to like 30 minutes of running. So it's very efficient. So if you want to just do that and get it out of the way, then that's enough, And we have a very healthy diet as is. Vaishnav, 1 to 2 meals a day, 3, but like not 3 heavy meals either. Krishna said in the Gita that we shouldn't eat too much nor too little, but actually the fasting state is when we're most optimized, when our energies are clearer, because you commit so much energy to digestion, and so if you're constantly having to digest, then you can't digest Srimad Bhagavatam. So make sure, fasting state is very much ideal. And then we can use that energy and bring it upwards into our more like cerebral capacities and jumping and dancing and book distribution and all this good stuff. Make sure the boat is fit and we have a good navigator, which means a bona fide sadhu who knows the terrain very well, who goes, okay, if you go in this direction, there'll be danger. If you pull the sail at this time, bad luck, or like all these things. So sadhu knows the way very well. And so we're in this very precarious situation. A spiritualist, a religionist knows how dangerous this situation is. And there's a kind of admiration, I'm just tangenting now, I have an admiration for the Christian view, as much as it's not Siddhanta, that they just say that we only have this life, which we know is not true. But Prabhupada has emphasized so many times, no, we have to try and nail it in this lifetime, because we actually don't know what's going to happen. Like, we're in an ocean which is very dangerous, and if we just kind of relax and, just think with the mindset like, I've got plenty of lifetimes to nail this, then we can take this whole thing for granted. And, as Krishna says, any one of the senses can wisp you off. Like look at Ajamil. Ajamil was very pious growing up, and he was a Brahmin, and all it took for him was to see one interaction with some very low-caste individuals, and he was like, the eyes are so, if uncontrolled, the eyes can be a great danger, because, he looked and he's like, oh, don't look. No, don't look. Don't look, So it's like, and just like that, he got wisped off, and then he spent, 80% of his lifetime just completely engulfed in, making excessive amounts of babies, not for the means of raising pious children, but just for sense gratification and gambling. And then he got into meat and intoxication, and he was just engulfed in it. And then it took the fortune of a sadhu to come to his house by great fortune, and he was out at the time, but the wife was still there, and she hadn't seen a sadhu in a long time, as you could probably imagine. And she, which is very lucky, treated him very affectionately, gave him a place to stay. The sadhu saw that this wife was pregnant, and he said, you should name your son Narayan. And then Ajamil comes home at the time, and he's like, what's this guy doing here? And he's actually quite hostile. But the wife was very happy. It's like, oh, I've got a name, and she's also running out of names because this is like her 11th child or something. So I've got a name for our new son, Narayan. And Ajamil was so conditioned at the time, it's almost like he didn't even hear it. He's like, what? Narayan. He couldn't even, that's how deep conditioning can get. And it happens without realizing it. Conditioning, it just happens without realizing. You think you're still in a good place, but that's the nature of conditioning. It's an illusion, right? So you can very easily get whisked off into that illusionary world, and to the point, to the extreme where it's like Ajamil, where he can't even hear Narayan, he can't even conceive of Narayan in the name. And then by great fortune, obviously, because of this sadhu, named his son Narayan at the time of death, when he was getting pulled by the denizens of hell, he called out to his son, and then he was saved by these Vishnu archetypes. And there's this beautiful interaction. I haven't listened to the story in quite a while, but this beautiful interaction where the Vishnu Dutas, like the denizens of Vaikuntha, are having this incredible dialogue with the denizens of hell and explaining that actually no, all of his impious activities have come to zero because he said Narayan at the time of death. And they're like, oh, and they come back to Yamaraj all disappointed because they think they've, failed at their mission or job, docket 32459, Ajamil, we couldn't get him. And then Yamaraj is like, oh, what happened? And then they explain the situation, and Yamaraj was, merging in ecstasy just hearing that they got to associate with the denizens of Vaikuntha. He said, you're very lucky. So we shouldn't, the Lord is an ocean of mercy and compassion, but we shouldn't depend on a situation like that at the time of death. We should just prepare now and just listen to nothing but the names of the Lord and kirtan and hari katha, and keep our consciousness pure, because conscious living, conscious dying. If you saturate yourself in Krishna consciousness, then you'll get, and there's a guarantee by Krishna, at the time of death, if you think of me, you'll attain me. So we just have to keep fixed no matter what. And there's many scenarios of fear and death in life anyway. And we know that we're changing the body constantly. Dehi no spinyata dehe komaram yovanam jara tatha dahantara prapti diras tattara namuyati. We're going through constant change. And I've already taken maybe 3 bodies, like a baby body, like a youthful body, young adolescent, and now I'm coming into an adult body, and I'll take on many other forms of this. So and we experience so much fear, but we have to train ourselves. We have to condition our mind that a Vaishnav has no fear. For one, he doesn't identify with the body, but he is beyond that. He has full faith that he is under the shelter of Krishna. And so we should have this mentality and not react to situations, but respond with consciousness, with the teachings of our spiritual master. And in such a way, then we can very soberly, spiritually navigate through this material world by the grace of the spiritual master. And then at the time of death, hopefully we are surrounded by beautiful devotees, and we can, think of Krishna in spite of this body breaking down, because it's not a cheap thing. The body breaking down at the time of death is very disturbing, and Prabhupada in this one purport described that actually it's almost, sometimes it's impossible to even chant at the time of death because you have so much mucus and bile in the throat. So this has become a very heavy class, I'm sorry. But anyway, it's life. So yeah, so if we think, I'll just do whatever and then chant at the time of death, maybe not so. So we should cultivate our lives in such a way that we're surrounded by devotees and we have all possible avenues to keep us fixed on Krishna's lotus feet at the time of death, or the lotus feet of our spiritual master, which would be non-different. Shakshat hari tvena samasta sastre. If we just become absorbed in the pastimes of our spiritual master at the time of death, then that's success as well. That's guaranteed. Anyway, any questions or in relation to anything I've said? Anything nonsense, please. There's probably some nonsense in there, and I do apologize. But yeah, I'll start to wrap up. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.